What we have here is our rhythm group track, which contains all of the rhythm instruments like the piano, acoustic guitar, banjo, and the mandolin. We're going to be continuing on with the top-down method, which means we're essentially processing those all together using this group track rather than processing them individually. So let's continue on here. We're going to start by grabbing an EQ. Here we have a high pass, which is rolling out any non-musical rumble. Then we have a shelf, which is going to give us control over the low, mid, and bass balance. This then leads us into a nice wide boost just over 2K, which is helping us get more upper, mid, and treble push. The high shelf is just there to give us control over the detail at the top. Sometimes you'll need to pull some out if things are starting to sound too thin or brittle, and other times you'll need to boost to get more intelligibility in this part of the sound. Then finally, we finish up with a low pass, which is only having a very subtle effect where we're just softening up those extreme highs a little. Let's take a listen in bypass, and then we'll switch the EQ on so we can hear the change that's being made. So to sum up, we're just doing a little cleaning at the top and bottom with the high pass and low pass. And then in terms of the overall tonal shaping, we're essentially tilting towards the upper mids and treble. This is going to work really well for the type of mix that we're going for. The key is to keep in mind how this interacts with the other elements. We're steering clear of the lows where we could get some fighting with the bass and percussion. We're also trying to ensure we don't become too brittle with our rhythm section. Now, what is considered too brittle? Now, that will depend on the type of mix you're going for. In this instance, this is fine. But if we were going for a warmer mix style, the type of EQ we've used here would sound too brittle. Now, this is something that I will drum on about a bit. The concept of relative tonal balance. And the reason I'm going to drum on about it is because if you understand that, it's a massive step forward to being able to carve out the type of mix you envisioned before even touching a fader. Next up, we have the virtual mix rack with the VCC setup to use the Brit 4KE console. And then we're going into the custom opto. Let's do a quick A-B of just the VCC for now so we can hear what that's giving us. Now the difference here is very subtle. With this being a grouping of all of the rhythm instruments, there was no need to do what we did with the bass guitar where we rarely got the sledgehammer out. All I want to do is impart a subtle amount of the virtual console's tonality, and then where certain instruments need more, we can go and take care of that on an individual basis. Next up, we have one of my favourite compressors, the Custom Opto. Let's do a quick A-B and hear what it's adding to our rhythm section. The main thing we have this compressor doing is gluing together these parts. Some of the strums are being tamed and tucked in a really nice way. Then anything which falls away a little too much is being brought forward, giving us a little more dynamic consistency. Finally, we have the virtual tape machine. In terms of settings, this is largely a copy and paste job from our mix bus process, except I've turned the noise well down and I'm using a slightly different bass alignment to account for the low boost the saturation gives you. Let's do an A-B with and without the virtual tape machine. Same as with the virtual console, we're not really going crazy here. It's really just a case of subtly adding these saturation processes bit by bit, and it's going to help us simulate an analog environment. By the end of the mix, we want to be at a point where if we switched off all of the saturation plugins in the mix, you'll actually hear a very significant change, but right now that isn't always going to be the case because we are very early on in the process. Let's finish up here by listening to an A-B of the entire rhythm stem process chain. First we'll listen in solo, and then we will listen in the context of the entire mix. Now, I do encourage you to find the change in sound yourself because it will help with the developments of your critical listening. But what I'm hearing is the rhythm section has more tonal focus now. The EQ is helping us a lot with this as we took out those rumbly lows and also added more presence, more push in those upper mids and the treble. Then with the custom opto, all of those rhythm parts are also starting to sit much nicer now, blending in with the other instruments, essentially starting to sound like they actually belong in the same mix. Now that's everything for today. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you next time.